Hello, Mr. Sahil.
Hi, good morning, Dr. Mukherjee. How are you doing?
Yeah, fine.
Good morning, Mr. Sahil. Most welcome.
Good morning, Dr. Usha. How are you doing?
Good, great.
Here, Dr. Rosario and Mr. Suresh Kuppaswamy and Mr. Anurag Srivats, everyone is joined. Anupam sir will join at 9:30 sharp, I hope so.
Perfect, sure. Hi, Rosario. Hi, Suresh. Give me a couple of minutes. I'll be on with you guys on video.
Panama.
Hi, Anurag.
Hi.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure and delightful to talk with the eminent industry people and academicians. And I'm welcoming all of you. And I will welcome Dr. Rosario Silippo from Switzerland because it's an untime for her, even though she spent the time. It's very, thank you very much for your concern and support. And Mr. Suresh Kuppaswamy, he is from HDFC. And Mr. Anurag Srivatsa and moderator, Mr. Sahil. And he is also senior associate in that is KPMG director over there. So thank you very much, and I'm welcoming for this particular conclave. And so the theme introduction over there, the theme of the Business Analytics Conclave of 2021 is Demystifying Analytics, Connecting Dots Over Business Arenas. In line with this growing need to focus and demystify analytics as conceptualized analytics in action, which aims to clear misconceptions to give a better understanding to analytics in India with additional inputs from global practitioners. So this conclave will focus on the application of analytics with global brands and national leaders on insights and strategy from varied sectors, such as healthcare sectors, financial institutions, consumer packaged goods, services, marketing, retail, e-commerce, to marketing automobiles and consumer durables. So this is everywhere this particular analytics is there. And I'm welcoming again Dr. Rosario. She is a head of data science evangelism at 9, Switzerland. Dr. Rosario Silva has been working in data analytics since 1992. Currently, she is a principal data scientist at Nine.com in Switzerland. In the past, she has held senior positions with Siemens, Visca, AG, and Nuance Communications and worked as a consultant in several data science projects. She holds a PhD in bioengineering from Politecnico di Milano and a master's in electrical engineering from the University of Florence, and is the author of more than 50 scientific publications, many scientific white papers, and several books for data science practitioners. Welcome, Dr. Rosario Silva. And Mr. Anupam Gupta, sir, co-founder of Head US Operations and Technologies. He has over 20 plus years of development and global consulting experience with enterprise solutions. Mr. Anupam Gupta began his career as a developer at SAP Labs, where he worked on strategic customer solution for ramp-up customer and has worked several Fortune 500 SAP implementations in his consulting career at Deloitte. His extensive SAP solutions background informs Sellable Technologies' unique expertise in transforming traditional enterprises using modern cloud innovation. Welcome, Mr. Anupam Gupta, sir. Mr. Suresh Kupuswamy, National Head Channel BAU, Dialer Infra and Dialer Management, HDFC Bank Limited, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Mr. Suresh has been with the bank for close to 2 decades and instrumental in setting up and running business intelligence and analytic teams, transformation of tele-business channels, and worked on technical transformations under digital banking. Currently, he enables tele-business channel success through technical and technology and analytics. Welcome, Mr. Suresh Kupuswamy, sir. Mr. Anurag Srivaths, Senior Vice President at Awas Financials Limited, Jaipur, Rajasthan, a data scientist with 15 plus years of experience in housing finance, banking, insurance, healthcare, utilities, and market research domains across India, US, UK, Middle East, and Asia Pacific, providing analytical support in form of machine learning, AI, RPA solutions, catering to acquisitions, risk management, customer lifecycle management, collections, recoveries, management, and automations. So this is the kind of a complete profile to all over the thing that, and also I'm welcoming Mr. Sahil Nair, Senior Associate Director, KPMG Mumbai. That is this particular conclave session. He is a wonderful moderator. We know the thing that. So thank you very much to everyone for spending your time for this particular conclave. And we are, that is our director, Dr. Prabhat Pankaj sir is currently not available for this particular conclave, but he sent his wishes yesterday night itself here because he went for that another kind of work. So Dr. Prabhat is a postgraduate in economics and PhD in applied economics. He obtained first position in the university in graduation and a university gold medal in post-graduation. He has been teaching economics at postgraduate, undergraduate level for about 30 years in the universities and B schools in India and abroad, including 7 years in Bhutan. Dr. Prabhat obtained executive education in management and leadership in higher education at Harvard University, Boston, USA. Dr. Prabhat is an avid trainer and resource person on effective teaching, teaching leadership, student-centric teaching learning, effective student engagement, and outcome-based education. And he is such a wonderful mentor, because I always blessed with the working with the wonderful mentors like that. He has given such a freedom to us to take everything challengeable opportunities. So I thank everyone for this particular conclave and spending your time. So now over to Dr. Usha ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Mary. I'm Dr. Usha Badera, Area Chair at Jaipur and IT Department. I thank you all for your gracious presence in the first Business Analytics Conclave, Demystifying Analytics, Connecting Dots of Business. We are truly delighted with your presence. Now I would request Siddharth to share the green certificate as a token of appreciation for our panel experts. Kindly accept this. It is an initiative by Jaipuria Institute of Management. A tree has been planted under your names. It can be tracked by the ID given at the bottom of the certificate. Siddharth, could you please share the first certificate?
Yes, ma'am.
And
it's visible, ma'am.
Can be tracked by the ID given at the bottom of the certificate. In the last 3 years, around 4,000 trees has been planted by the Jaipuria Institute of Management across the 4 campuses. So we welcome you, ma'am. Over to you, Siddharth.
Hello, ma'am, and good morning to all. Wait a second, ma'am. As a part of Jaipuria Welcome, I would like to present the green certificate to our guest. We welcome you, ma'am. A tree has been planted in your name at Sundarbans, West Bengal, to enhance the life of giving creatures and improve water catchment areas. You can track its progress through the tracking mentioned in the certificate. We will be mailing you the same. And
thank you. Thank you very much.
Anupam sir, a tree has been also planted in your name also, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Mr. Suresh Kuposwamy, sir, a tree has been also planted in your name also, sir.
Wonderful, thank you.
Anurag sir. Anurag sir, your tree has been also planted in your name, sir.
Thank you very much.
And in last, Mr. Sahil Nair, sir, a tree has been also planted in your name, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Over to you, Shamla.
Once again, I thank you all for your gracious presence in the first Business Analytic Conclave. And now I hand over it to Mr. Sahil Nair. Over to you, sir.
Great, fantastic. What a start, right? Beautiful, Jaipuria. I think you've really got us the best experts from across the globe, right? For some, it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, from whichever part of the world you're logging in from. Dr. Mary, thank you for having us over. Dr. Usha, I think brilliant contribution to kickstart this very, very important business analytics conclave. And I couldn't be even more happier today because my panelists are from such varied domains, such different sectors. And I can promise you, students and faculty members and all the others who are going to be watching this recording, that you're going to get insights that are going to be mind-blowing. Because just think of the richness of this panel, right? Different sectors, different industries, their experience spanning so many years, and the kind of fantastic work that they've done, I think is going to be a huge piece of knowledge that we're really going to get today. So without further ado, let's get started. And we're going to simplify this. I'm going to try and make this very interesting and interactive with the audience, and it's not happened without your support. The chat is enabled. So why don't you just go in and put in your questions on the chat while you hear the panelists. But let's start off by understanding the basics. You know, we've always said that a couple of years ago, a very well-renowned businessman said that data is the new oil, right? And we really come to a space today where no organization can call itself an organization that does not thrive on data. And you may be in a particular sector, you may be working in a particular industry, but at the end of it, data is core to your operations, data is core to your decision making, and data is core to crystal ball gazing into the future as people create their business plans, both short-term, mid-term, and long-term. So having said that, Rosaria, you've been doing a lot of work in this space. And of course, you come from a geography far away from where we are right now. Tell us what's happening in the global environment as far as analytics is concerned, and why is there so much of a fad around analytics over the last decade?
Oh, a lot is happening. So I'll try to focus on just a few aspects. So analytics has become more and more adopted by a lot of industries. So from an industry point of view, all the companies now want to put together, or they already have it and they want to expand it, a group for data analytics, for data science. There is the usual problem of finding the people, the employees who can actually run, so implement data science applications. And I think the big change is now in the is that a lot of companies are now starting to introduce low-code tools for data science, because since it's so complicated to find the right people with the right skills, maybe low-code applications, they can lower the barriers to have data scientists in your company. I mean, the barrier for the mathematics and the whole algorithmic concepts, of course, remains, but at least the barrier for the coding disappears. So this is one of the changes. There are many more. So another big change, and then I'll stop. I'll say only this to another big change that I've noticed. Is that until a few years ago, data analytics was a bit kind of a research in the sense of experimental topic. So you try, you see if the model works. If the model doesn't work, you start again, and then you tweak this little parameter, and then you start again. And so it's kind of an experiment. But recently, in the last, I would say, 2-3 years, I have observed that all the data science labs have reached some kind of a maturity level, and a lot of applications are already out there and they're working. So the weight has shifted from the experimental part into the maintenance part. So these applications, they move into production, and then you have to take care of them like all productive software applications. So they have to work, they have to keep working. There has not to be hiccup. If the data is changing, then the application must be retrained. So it has become a production problem more than a research experimental problem. So those are two big changes. There have been more, but I would say those are the two big ones.
Superb, Rosario. Thank you so much for giving us that 30,000 feet view of what's really changed in the decade from exploration to reaching maintenance. Closer back home, Anurag, what's your thought? Why is it that this has become such a big fad or such a big hype? There was data earlier as well. A lot of people used to look at data, we used to talk to people, used to get insights and take decisions. But now with big data happening, with so much of IT getting pervasive into data, you want to give us your perspective, and then we quickly come to Suresh and Anupam. Again, 30,000 feet, we'll come into a drill down later, but 30,000 feet, why is data analytics, and we'll come to data science and all of that later, but just analytics right now, why has it become center stage?
Sure. Oh, thank you very much for the opportunity. And I really very thankful for being invited to this forum in this August gathering with so renowned people from the industry and academy. See, as you rightly mentioned, Sahil, that data has been used for some time now, and for drawing these insights, and more or less all of us come from the industry. Like I have now spent 17 years, and I've been working in the data domain for the last 17 years. So at least that much time I am personally familiar that we have been working on data. But especially in the Indian context, if you look at it, the way digital integration has happened in various aspects. So the availability of data has become much more easier now, as vis-a-vis, if you even talk say 7-8 years back. So in the domestic scene, if you look at, say, if you go back 7-8 years back, even bureau data was not that very rich. You were getting, only very few people on bureau. Their reporting was not very up to date. Likewise, apart from certain traditional channels, whether you get some ITR related information, salary slip related information, you had very few channels through which you will get structured regular data. Unstructured was not even being talked about 7-8 years back. Now today, suddenly you have your computing capability has grown many-fold. The processing power has improved significantly. The storages are, you have cloud out there. You can virtually have anything, structured and structured anything. So I think it's the number of channels through which data is getting aggregated, through which data is getting accumulated, along with the possibility of storing that much of data, coupled with the processing power to harness that data to generate certain insights. I think these few things have come together to create an ecosystem where data has become more important in the decision-making process. Even today, I won't say that we are, and especially again, I'm not talking about West European or American markets where much more maturity in terms of data-driven decision-making has been seen, because I have worked in those markets and I know that. In India, still, I would say we are still at somewhere at the nascent stages of adopting data science. More and more people, organizations are waking up to it and ingesting it and making it a part of a decision-making process, rather than just having it as a showcase capability that, yeah, I have data science. Still, it's a buzzword, but we are still, making gradual, slow progress in not just using it as a marketing tactic, rather than implementing it into, a pure decision-making process. So yeah, that's my.
No, absolutely, Anurag. I think very, very useful points, because you've really covered the journey of how we heard Rosaria talk about getting into maintenance to different geographies closer back home, actually being on the exploratory journey. Anupam, what are your thoughts?
So I agree with Anurag. Data was always there. Few things happened last, decade and a half. We had all these internet companies like Google started gathering more and more data, right? So the data points increase, the volume of data increase, which helps you do better predictions, right? Better use of the data, right? Then the computing power increased as well, right? This whole distributed computing, which we used to study in computer science for last many decades, right? It became a mainstream reality, right? We all used to have courses of distributed computing, but when Hadoop came in, we had actual practical applications, right? And Google was the pioneer in that, right? From a storage and compute perspective, right? The third thing that happened is there was more progress in algorithmic studies, right? There were better algorithms to get insights out of the data, right? So these three things combined brought this data science to mainstream, right? Which was theoretical. I remember my BTech project back in the days in IIT Bombay was on neural networks, right? And it wasn't a popular topic then, right? And I was watching an interview by Eric Schmidt from Google. Like they used to hire a lot of these PhDs with neural network and those kind of backgrounds, and they were cared, right? And suddenly everybody started gaining importance. Hey, who are the PhDs who have done research in neural networks, right? We can utilize them in deep learning and all those insights, right? So these three things combined, I think, brought data science to mainstream, right? Be it India or abroad, I think a lot of these digital companies, they have more and more data points, right? And I'll talk about how we are leveraging more ERP and supply chain data and meaningful insights in subsequent discussion. But I think those are the trends that have gotten data science to mainstream, is what my experience has been.
Super, Anupam. Very, very nice. Good insights. Let's come to Suresh. Suresh, you come from the financial services space. And for decades, we have been seeing banks pick up data from their customers when they open accounts or FDs or any other association. But we never really realized what were they doing with that data all these years, right? You want to throw some insights of how filling up those lengthy forms to now actually just putting your fingerprint on and linking it to Aadhaar and getting everything pulled in 4 seconds or in 4 minutes. Every bank has their own jargon. I won't get into that, but opening an account in 4 minutes, right? Any thoughts, Suresh, of how data is the backbone of the banking industry, and any thoughts on how you've seen this change over the years?
Thanks, Sahil. You really answered a lot on my behalf. Actually speaking, coming from the banking industry perspective, it's two large aspects or two large elements that drives this data science as a buzzword. The first one is the customer expectations. As we rightly said that, there were days, when you apply for a personal loan, it takes days and days to get the amount credited. Today, we offer our personal loans in 10 seconds. In zero touch, we can call it as, or maybe a low touch. So what's more? So that's the customer experience expectation today. So that the current generation, does not wait for anything, right? They want everything instant. Everything is no questions asked. So what's the answer? The second largest element is the environment change. The COVID has really, made all of us to stay, offline and go digital, right? So the traditional brick and mortar branches were not really, the option at that time, and even now. So our data centers has really become a cloud now. So those days, the data centers used to be physical, and now, I mean, in banking, the cloud was not a, first of all, acceptable term earlier, but now I see everything is the cloud born applications being inducted into the banking, and our data centers becoming. So in nutshell, the environment and the customer experience both driving each other mutually, and I feel these two are the biggest influencers of data or data science being in the buzzword. Because as you rightly said, nobody willing to fill up a lengthy form. So customer expect that I'll come to the bank digitally. Don't ask me too many questions. Maybe I will do 2 clicks, 3 clicks, 4 clicks, but give me allow me to open an account, allow me to make payments, allow me to take my loans, allow me to do transactions. So everything is the expectation that drives the environment that creates the ecosystem for the customers to expect. So mutually, these two requires a lot of data processing in the backend, and the data science becomes the center stage for that. So that's my view from the banking side of it.
Beautiful, Suresh. I think so. Now you really got us down to 10,000 feet. Let's see whether we hit the tarmac very quickly. Rosaria, I think you started off with two very beautiful points at 30,000 feet. Suresh added on, Anupam, Anurag brought in their perspectives. But tell us this, Rosaria, imagine, let's try and put this in perspective, right? The end consumer is a bunch of millennials, the majority of the audience out there, right? You also have people who are Gen X, Gen Y, who are also part of the ecosystem. So you need to cater to people who are in their 70s, 80s. You also need to cater to people who are 15 and who are consuming data, who are creating data, right? Whether it be YouTube influencers or whether it be people out there who are actually working in organizations crunching data to look at mortality rates in a country, just as an example. Question to you, Rosaria, is to say, if everything is wanted or needed at the touch of a button, what kind of ecosystem do we need to create to move from exploratory to maintenance?
So the part of the maintenance is not only that the results are delivered correctly, but also, like, for example, a recommendation engine, but the results are actually delivered quickly. So the part that's why I said that it's going to it has moved a lot from kind of experimental environment to more like engineering environment. So a lot of work has to be put in the surrounding work around the model, so that not only the model is correct, but it's also very efficient. I think that I have seen a lot of effort in the data engineering, machine learning engineering. So the whole engineering part of the data science job, there are new professional figures exactly for that, to make it efficient and up to date, constantly up to date. So as you said, you have to deliver to 15 years old or 20 years old, and at the same time to 80 years old, and it has to be fast and it has to be efficient. So a lot of the work has shifted towards the engineering part of assembling an application.
No, absolutely. And Anurag, I think let's spend a little bit more time on this whole generations that are out there either creating or consuming data and analytics around it. Now, you may have people who are digital natives, right? But you may also have people who may just say, you know what, I find it very convenient going to Suresh's branch, sitting there, meeting the branch manager, having my cup of coffee, filling my FD form, touching that paper, looking at that hard copy of the receipt. It makes me very happy. It makes me feel secure. And then I take that FD receipt and I go into my locker, I put it in the locker, and I know that my money is safe with Suresh. And on the other hand, you have somebody who's saying, you know what? I don't have the time, man. I get free after watching my Netflix, binge watching at 2 in the morning. You want to create an FT, Dad? I will just log into net banking. I'll go onto the app and I'll create the FT and so it's done. And the dad is saying, oh, where's the money gone? Where is that paper? Where is the receipt? Where is the thing? There's no email. There's nothing. There's no SMS. What do I do with an SMS? What if my mobile gets lost tomorrow? Consumerization of processing of data, looking at user preference. Any thoughts there, Anurag? It's a complicated thing. There are no straight answers, but we'd love to hear your perspective. Anupam, same question coming to you once, Anurag.
Sure. Thank you, Sahil. I think it's a very interesting question and something that I have had first-hand experience with because in my last organization at Awas, we were catering to customers from tier 1 city to tier 6 towns as well. Now, what you mentioned, like there are actually these two diametrically opposite end of a spectrum where one person is completely digitally integrated. He has his DigiLockers, he does banking online, he applies for the loan online, he's least interested in filling up application and everything. And on the other hand, I have someone in a tier 5 town who runs a mini tea shop, who has like for him, I might have to open a bank account as well for him if I am dispersing a loan to him. And he's completely digitally alienated, just, WhatsApp maybe and YouTube. Those are the two tools that he uses as far as digital footprint is concerned. But yeah, the challenges are there because we have different personas of customers. But that's where the beauty also lies. I would say, today, the way we are leveraging data science, I think the success lies in the hybrid model. The success lies in customizing it as per the consumer preferences, as you said, or more of a, it might be not even a question of preference. It's a limitation as well, because as I told you, like there are geographies, and in fact, 60% of territories in India are that way. There's still a bit, lagging behind as far as full-fledged digital integration is concerned. So what we need to do that niches where complete data availability is there and the customers are completely net savvy and very much online and very smart that ways. We try to have solutions which give them one-click solutions. Don't need to go anywhere. So there is a website. You have a WhatsApp icon there, so you have a callback. If you're interested in talking to someone, you can get a call directly. You can fill up your basic details, upload your KYC documents, and if you have all your documents available, like your salary slip, ITR, business returns, you might not even need to do anything. A KYC verification, eKYC will happen. Everything will be done in 24 hours. You'll get a notification that your loan has been sanctioned, subject to certain document validation and everything. On the other hand, yes, there are scenarios where you can't do anything, but you have to reach out to this customer, translate as much data as possible, information as possible into data format so that you can use it for future analysis and everything. But ultimately, technology or data should be leveraged to enable the human interface between these kind of people and the organization. Because as you rightly said, especially in lending space, I come from very traditional lending space. In this space, that touch and feel aspect, someone in tier 4 town, he knows organization as a brand, that's fine. But for him, the salesperson who convinced him to take the loan from the organization is his key guy. He would always like to talk to him for any payment related information, for any top-up requirements, for any moratorium requirements. And what my role as a head of data science is to enable this interface, this sales guy, with as much information possible as on his device, so that when the customer is interacting with him, he knows all his options, which are based upon data, driven by data, and have been created after taking all the scenarios into consideration. So yeah, it's like the final customized word is where for one segment, it's completely, one-click solutions, no human interface required unless or until needed as per the preference of the customer. On the other hand, we enable workforce who can act as a bridge between the organization and the customer and empower him with data and technology so that he can meet all the needs of this customer on the ground.
No, brilliant, Anurag. I think you've really gone into the crux of the problem and also giving us the socio-economic landscape of how different consumers would react differently. Anupam, thoughts?
Yeah, so I agree with Anurag. In the near term, I think a hybrid model would work, but nothing scales as well as digital penetration, right? And what we have seen in this pandemic is people are more resilient than we give them credit for, right? Pandemic, it was a global phenomenon, right? What it did to the larger business in terms of digitization is what demonetization did to digital payments 5 years back, right? It kind of forced digital payment onto every consumer, right? So kind of adoption was a lot faster because it was a situation kind of forced upon you. And same happened in pandemic, right? Now, I love that touchy-feely thing of talking to people, like it's like the liftman of my building. I used to love him, right? I could chat about what's going on. He would gossip
Used
about
to,
the
or
building.
you still love him?
No, it no longer exists, right? The role of a liftman is gone, right? And so as much as we like interacting with people, people also add a lot of cost to the process. Also, there is less standardization, right? So whether we like it or not, I think things would get hyper digital in the future, right? Also, the way you could penetrate, right? Now, I know a lot of financial systems and banks have penetrated to the rural areas, right? But it's not applicable to all kinds of scenarios, right? So when it comes to e-commerce and a lot of, right, today you have access to this kind of inventory which your local mom and pop shop in a forget tier 4, even tier 3, tier 2 don't have, right? But through e-commerce now you have access to the largest inventory, right? And you have a recommendation engine that works in your favor, right? Otherwise, your local kirana guy doesn't care about your recommendations and arranging inventory for you, right? So I think digital in the largest sense will penetrate more, and data will play an enormous role there. Yes, data collection is going to be a challenge because not every level of folks are digitally educated, but I think they're very resilient, right? In India, I've seen even before you had 2G and 3G, people had written applications on SMS, right? So you have village boy, going to this mandi for, checking out the rates of, goods through SMS, right? That boy is no longer needed because you're sending SMS that, okay, what are the rates for the day, right? For the grains and for vegetables or whatever, right? So people are more resilient than we give them credit for. So, with data, it's going to penetrate more and more. That's my thinking.
Super. People are more resilient than we give them credit for. Beautiful takeaway, Anupam. Thank you so much. Rishika, Siddharth, thank you so much for your questions on the chat. This is an invitation to each one of you. Please put your questions on the chat. I would love to put them to our panelists. Siddharth, thanks for starting off. Rishika, thanks for adding in. All the other students, an invitation, please put your questions on the chat. Suresh, let's come to you, right? And let's go back to the classic example of connecting people, the brand that connected people as their tagline. 60, 70, 80% market share, doing very, very well. Suddenly, out of nowhere, disruption came and hit them in the whole mobile industry, right? We fast forwarded, let's look at hospitality. Yeah, you had so many leading brands in luxury doing very, very well. And competition for them wasn't yet another hotel. It was an aggregator, right? Come to the third phase of how analytics plays out. And at the backbone, as you very correctly mentioned, Suresh, everything is behind because the customer just wants it in a couple of seconds with a couple of clicks, right? Look at what has happened to the transport industry. Yeah, as kids, when we all used to go on picnics with our family members, we would have a little bit of food, a little bit of those nice buckets that we would take with us to go to a nice camping area as we drive through the hinterland. And now there's an organization that gets you food while you're moving from one place to another. There's also another delivery organization that delivers food to your house, but now has integrated it with the marketplace to also deliver groceries. And each one of us know of these brands, know of these examples. And I know, Suresh, on the chat, quickly coming to my question, on the chat, you did mention that while there will be a lot of such operators who will keep springing up into the future, you don't see them as a threat. You see them as wonderful collaborators to join hands with you as part of the larger ecosystem. So Suresh, the question is, with disruption being the name of the game, what do you foresee as disruption? And with some of the players that have been mentioned on the chat, how do you see collaboration hitting an all-time high?
Thanks, Sahil. Again, as I mentioned in the chat, be it from the banking industry or any industry for that matter, or even for an individual, my view is that nothing is a threat. It's all lies in how do we convert the threat into an opportunity, right? I would like to quote an example of a mall culture, which is today happening. What is a mall? Mall is an ecosystem, right? If there is one shop in that one area, maybe you will get a slight population. If there are similar shops of tens of different similar shop in one area, so the more population visits there. So does it the second shop or the third shop, is it a threat to the previous one? My view is not. It is an opportunity. The more shops creates an ecosystem, attracts a larger population, therefore becomes a big marketplace there. So it provides a larger opportunity to my mind. So that's the analogy and the theme I would like to apply to all the threats. Coming to the question in the chat, they said that people like Google Pay, etc. Is it a threat to the banking industry? Obviously not. Maybe in the shorter time, it looks like eating up your market share. But in the large aspect, if you look at it, all of them are creating a new ecosystem. We also touched upon a different mix of personas, right? Talking from Gen X to Gen Y to Gen Z to the senior citizens to everybody, right? So an ecosystem is always consist of personas. So any such new inventions and new introductions can only be targeting a particular personas, especially talking to this Google Pay. You can't be, of course people will take time, like a senior citizens learning and coming to this. The adoption will happen over a period, but it will not be very quick. So there will be a time factor also. So I completely see all of them as an opportunity to create an ecosystem, therefore move the entire population towards the digital world, therefore generate more data. I would also like to take some cues from what Anupam said about the lift man, right? So I would like to go back to those days where the ceiling fan was not there, right? So there was a man who used to keep pulling some clothes kind of a setup to create an air to the kings, right? So that's what happens to the electric ceiling fan today. That's an automation. So does it created killed a job? Yes, it's killed a job. But what happened to those people? So they learned different things. So every innovation, every automation, it transforms the people from one level to another level. If you keep seeing it as a threat, it's a threat. But I always, I mean, not only me, the organization that I belong to, as well, looks at every such things as an opportunity to see, collaborate, and create an ecosystem, and therefore deliver a better and improved experience to the customers.
Super, very, very nice, positive mindset and positive attitude. Instead of looking at them as threats, look at them as collaborators, opportunities to grow. But Suresh, let's keep this very simple, right? And I really like your mall example. So let's go back to the mall ecosystem. Now, if there is a standalone restaurant versus there is a food court, right? Now, when you go to a food court at a mall, you're typically spoiled for choice. Now, isn't that competition? It's in competition in your face, right? What are your thoughts there? While it's very nice to say that I have a positive mindset and collaboration and all of that, and I'm 100% with you on that, the reality is every store needs to pay rent, and that rent will only come from footfalls. And when the footfalls and the numbers and the revenue on a monthly basis doesn't really support, you need to shut shop. And that's the harsh reality of business. We've seen that with many brands in many malls, including malls also shutting down. So therefore, Suresh, marrying a mindset with data, what are your thoughts?
Slightly deviating from the analytics to the management, yeah, but still very interesting. I take that question. As you rightly said, that the answer lies in change management. So I would like to again go back to the organization that I belong to and take cues from there. Of course, there will be competition. The competition will be eating up your market share. It is very important that you keep changing, you keep innovating, you keep keeping yourself to the up to the industry. Therefore, you keep tackling the competitions, and then surviving and sustaining, and then of course continue to grow. That's a change management, and that's something everybody and every industry has to keep it, is my view.
Very nice, very nice. Let's move on. Pooja, Rishabh, thank you so much for asking your questions. And maybe, Rosaria, I'll come to you and let me pick one of the questions that have really come on the chat, right? And Rosaria, you spoke about this entire journey, right, of starting off and data scientist and analyst and all of that, right? Let's keep it very simple for the students out here. If I am an MBA student and I'm going to be passing out, I want to really become a data analyst. What are some of the things that I should be doing as a student today, while I still have time on my side, while I have wonderful professors out there who are willing to teach me, willing to coach me, are organizing such conclaves by getting expert speakers to come in and share their views? So Rosaria, the question is, this one is from Rishika. What are the prerequisites to start the journey of becoming a data analytics or a data analyst person or a data scientist? So are there some courses? Are there some reading material? If you would give us those level of details, I think that will be very, very beneficial for all the students.
So I would like to answer this question with a quote from a blog post of a colleague of mine. He was asked the same question and he answered, if you want to become a data scientist, you need to change your hobbies. So he was saying that the whole data science is an interest. So it's a constant curiosity towards how to solve a problem. So it's not just something you do a course for 3 months and then you have it. It's a state of mind that you always want to find a solution for whatever problem. And so he was quoting that I found it great, because yeah, it's true. So it has to involve. It's not just a job. It's really the whole day you are thinking in some particular way to solve a problem, to how to automate and make an application think so that it can deliver the results that people expect. So anyway, besides the joke, I think it's, I mean, there are many courses now that you can take. They are everywhere. They are online. They are at universities. So I'm sure you can find the course for you. There are two. So what I've noticed, there are two main directions. One is the theory. So it's necessary to know the math behind the algorithm. I mean, that's not something you can get around it. So you need to learn a bit about statistics. You need to learn a bit about machine learning. You need to learn a bit also, depending on how you specialize. But if you want to specialize in the efficiency of the production of the algorithm, then you need to learn a bit about software production. You need to, so there are a few things that you need to learn, but definitely the math behind that is necessary. There are you need to know some tools. The tools, I find it secondary, because I mean, how long does it take to learn a tool unless the tool is very complicated? But I mean, that's something you can always adjust. But definitely the major investment should be in learning the math behind the algorithm, that the algorithms that shape the whole data science, all the data science professions. I don't know, did I answer that?
No, you surely did. Yeah, you surely did, Rosaria. But maybe we'll do a little bit more deep dive. And Anupam, Do you want to pick the same question and maybe do a little deeper dive to say, okay, I am a student, and again, I'll behave like a class 10 student. My parents have been telling me the future is data analytics. So why don't you pick up data analytics? And I'm going to ask them that, please tell me which university, which course, maybe not university, but tell me what should I study? What are the subjects? I want to see whether I like it. Typical scenario, Anupam, let's look at it this way, right? I pass out school. I'm confused. Should I take arts, commerce, or science? Now, if I am that student and you have to explain data analytics to me and saying, this is what data analytics is, Sahil, would you be interested in doing this? Because there's a bright future. What would you recommend to me?
So I'll start with a very trivial explanation about data science and machine learning, right? So everybody understands software, right? At least the premise of it, that you write logic, you translate into code, and the computer or robot, they learn based on that code, right? Okay, if this happens, do that, right? Sometimes scenarios are very complex, right? Like a self-driving car, or like making predictions or making recommendations, right? So we do the reverse, and that is what machine learning is, right? You take a lot of data points and then you try to learn from it, right? So you have a test car running across the roads. It's a Google car, it's capturing data. You capture what it does in what situation, and you build a mathematical model. So it's kind of learning from the data. It's kind of reverse process to what a traditional software is, right? So I try to explain in very simple terms, machine learning and data science, right? Now, whether we like it or not, I think software had become almost like electricity, right? Like if at advent of previous century, you cannot say, hey, I'm not into electricity, right? I won't do anything that deals with electricity. You cannot say that, right? Similarly, you cannot say, oh, I don't want to do anything with computers. Or, I mean, if you're programming a washing machine, you need to know basic logic, right? Okay, I have kind of few controls, and that's how I'm using a smartphone. There are settings for every small thing, right? Now we have come to a point where there is basic data and analytics in every sphere of life, right? Of course, I want to be an artist, that's fine, but you'll put your kind of art for sale or display online at some point, and you would want more traffic to come in, right? So everybody has to deal with some kind of, software and data, at some point, right? But coming back to what education is needed, right? And I take a lot of lectures for MBA students, engineering students at Jaipur and other institutes, right? One thing I observed is there was a sort of running away from mathematics and technology, and people try to find MBA as a solace that, hey, I had a very bad experience with math, and you guys put me through this really torturing JEE preparation, which I failed, and then engineering, which I struggled, and I just somehow managed my 4 year of BTech. So I came to an MBA college because I want to run away from that, right? So somewhere you have to convert that bad experience and bad dream into something interesting, right? There is no running away from software. There is no running away from mathematics, right? Maybe you start from scratch, take very basic mathematics courses, very basic data related courses, statistical courses, and try to generate your interest in data, in mathematics again, right? Not very super complicated mathematics. You don't have to be a statistician. You don't have to go into that detail. Even as a manager, you need to understand the basics of data, what's possible with that. So at least you can work with data scientists, even if you don't become a data scientist yourself, right? So this is my, push for this MBA generation, who sometimes is resigned to the fact that, hey, we are done with technology, we're done with mathematics, right? Now give us something in sales, marketing, operations, which does not use data, which does not use software, but that's not going to happen, right? And I have seen that shift even in Jaipuria, like the kind of interaction I used to have 2 years back versus now. I see there is more and more interest with data science and analytics, right? And I see now there are better programs with Dr. Mary and others are running with regards to, analytics, right? So that's my, thought process.
So Anupam, just going back to the 10th standard kid in me, and you spoke a lot about mathematics, right? So I remember geometry. I studied 1-2 years back in my 7th or 8th. I remember algebra. Maybe there was one more subject in mathematics. I don't remember what it was, but were there 3 subjects in maths?
So math has a lot of aspects, like there is calculus, but there is statistics, right? We all had some basic chapters on statistics, like just calculating the mean, median, mode kind of stuff, right? And we used to analyze, population data or, student scores in various exams. Those are the typical examples we used to take, right? And they're very relevant, right? They were just not called with a popular name like a data science in those days, right? Now, typical data science follows that popular Venn diagram, those 3 circles intersecting. One is your statistics, one is your software, and one is your domain knowledge, right? Now, if you are an MBA student or whichever field you pick up, right, you will address at least one of the domains. It could be marketing, sales, finance, or it could be a kind of an industry domain like banking, manufacturing, those kind of domains, right? Even in manufacturing could have pharma, discrete manufacturing, different kind of things, right? So you got to understand your domain, because that will give you the context of what data points are relevant, right? Then very basic software, if you have to really put those machine learning models and then operationalize them. Now we have moved on, as Dr. Rosaria said, from experimental stage to you have productionized models. And that's where, my company comes in, where we, deploy these models on enterprise cloud like AWS or Azure or Google, right? So that software aspect is the second circle that's important, and the third is obviously the statistics part of it, right? Which we may call by a different name, but it's always been there, right? It's just you have more advancements in algorithms. So you have deep learning algorithm, which we used to call as neural network, backpropagation, algorithms, and so on. We're just given them more popular names, right? Like a lot of my friends who are doing kind of operational research, right? They were doing exactly what a data scientist does today, right? But they're just not popular, right? Now, one of my classmates, he's running one of the largest data science companies called Tiger Analytics, right? Now, he was a secluded professor in Rutgers. He did his PhD from MIT. He was just doing operational research, right? Now, suddenly he's, leading one of the top data science companies in the US, Tiger Analytics, right? It's pretty much the same stuff, but it's branded as data science, right? So as a 10th grader, those are the things that you need to look into. If you want to do basics of programming, try to pick up 1 or 2 domains that excite you, and basics of statistics, right? That will help you.
Very nice, Anupam. Very well explained. I understand this better now. Thank you. Okay, Anurag, let's come to you. You had a very rich career in housing finance as well, apart from the many other sectors and healthcare and others that you worked in. Why don't you just pick up the similar example, but contextualize it to any of the sectors, not just housing finance, but maybe healthcare or any other sector where you've actively contributed in. And tell us, if you were to pick one example of the entire supply chain of data analytics, how would it really play out? Let's say if you were to just pick up the whole Venn diagram and tell us the kind of work that you've done in that space to a specific sector, I think we'll have a lot more appreciation as the student community for this subject and understand it from a sectoral perspective as
well. Okay. Kind of, yeah, finding it a bit difficult to simplify it and relate it, but let me give it a try. So see, let's take the case of healthcare, for example. Here. Now I had spent 3-4 years catering to clients in that space. What's important is, from a data science point of view, that what Anupam talked about, understanding the domain. Now, no matter which particular sector you move to, data science solutions and the software supporting those solutions, that is not going to change drastically. You will have the same machine learning algorithms. You will have the same platforms on which you can build those, you can deploy those. When it comes to the relevance of a sector, that's where the third circle of the Venn diagram becomes the most important part, that you need to understand the domain. Underwrite, for example, I'll give you a difference. For underwriting a customer or doing a risk assessment or understanding the credit worthiness of a customer, is a very critical aspect on the financial services side while doing a lending business, while giving them a credit card or anything like that. However, the same risk assessment does not remain that important while looking at it from the healthcare point of view. Now there I'm looking at more customized solution, how I can do recommendation engines, how I can help the customer with finding better opportunities, doctor tie-ups. In my experience, what I have seen to become a successful data scientist, you need to know all the three to a certain extent, plus minus whatever it is. But this third piece of domain is very important, because suppose you build a very sophisticated algorithm using all the tools available at your end. But if you are not, and ultimately you are a data scientist in the organization, in a company, or for a client, whoever you're working for, that the stakeholder on the other side might not be as competent in terms of understanding the data science and technology to that extent. The question here is, will you be able to translate your science in as many simple words to the person at the other end, so that he can relate what kind of value he is getting out of this solution? In my past experience, and this is across sectors I'm talking about, a lot of data science solutions or a lot of good algorithms don't see the day of light or don't get productionalized because the stakeholder is not convinced what you're trying to do. It's like a magic. You are trying to do some magic with data. The guy on the other side has absolutely no idea about the statistics. He has no idea about machine learning. But if you are able, if you have the domain knowledge, if you understand the business finer points, then you will be able to relate your mathematical equation, pick up those variables out of there, talk the business sense around those variables, how the science relate to the normal business expectations, how these variables are important for this. And that's when you establish that connect where your solution becomes, actually adds value to the ecosystem. So I think it's very domain knowledge is rather, in fact, you can be a bit lower on the statistics side. And as Anupam said, you need a bit of it. As much as you know, more advanced algorithms or more deeper into the science you can enter. But at the starting point, you don't need to be a PhD in statistics to become a data scientist. At the starting of your career, you don't need to be a complete software expert to become a data scientist. But in whatever space you work, when you start working, I think it's very important that while picking up the stats part or the software part along with the journey, you don't forget the domain part. Because as much knowledge you would gather, and what you learn from one domain, you can deploy, you can replicate those examples and relevant scenario across different domains. I learned about, for example, my first exposure to the collections and recoveries business happened with my very first job in American Express on the credit card side. Now, credit card is a very different kind of product vis-a-vis a housing loan product that I'm working with recently. However, when I developed certain delinquency models or collections or recovery algorithms for housing, my learning from the credit card space was very, very, very important in creating these algorithms. So, two different products, two different, altogether different organizations. But what, from a methodology point of view, from understanding the parameters that contribute to a customer risk or the credit worthiness, I think that knowledge remains very, very similar across different domains. So that's what my recommendation to all the budding data scientists would be, that it's a process. You don't take that kind of a stress upon you that on day one you need to be great at too many things. What is necessary is there is a aptitude to become a data. Are you a problem solver? Are you comfortable with numbers? Mathematics is the foundation stone. So if you get mentally stressed by numbers, if you are mentally stressed looking at the Excel file or looking at the data, then that is something that needs to be worked upon. You can't become a data scientist having a fear for data. That is kind of the first bottleneck that needs to go away. No matter in which domain you are, you might be completely in a different field today. But if you want to become a data scientist, you need to have a bit of comfort level with data. And then you keep that, that journey, you keep on augmenting your capabilities as you move on this journey along. As much as you will learn, as much as you will get deeper into it, you will become a better data scientist. Today, thanks to a lot of platforms, and as Rosario is a part of that whole evolution, that we have so many click and drop, like click menu, drag and drop kind of interfaces, where you actually don't need to know exact coding, or you don't need to be a good coder to do all those things. You can simply click on it and run a support vector machine. You can drag and combine two data sets, not worrying about how the left join will look like, how to write a SQL for right joins and all those things. But if you don't understand why are you doing it, what is the kind of value you're going to get out of it, that's where I think that your whole evaluation will be very much dependent upon that. So to become a better data scientist, understand what you're doing and why you're doing. The why question is very necessary to improve upon and to deploy it at different points. Thank you, sir. That will be all from my side.
No, I think Anurag, very, very elaborate. And I was myself so intrigued with what you were sharing, and I didn't even feel like interrupting you because you were just covering it all so beautifully. So thank you for that in-depth answer, Anurag. Really appreciate it. Anupam, I know you spoke about AWS and you said that you've done some work in this space earlier on. And Pooja Rajesh has a question on the chat which says, how does analytics play a role in I think it's trends, maybe she's mentioned trends with AWS perspective. Any thoughts there on AWS, analytics, trending, any perspective, Anupam?
See, so AWS, which is part of Amazon, right? Amazon Web Services, essentially, kind of democratized a lot of computational power, right? And it came out of, Amazon managing their own infrastructure, software infrastructure, which became so scaled that they kind of made it commercialized and started, offering it as a service, right? So you have computing power as a service, which means you don't have to buy that many physical servers and, just try to do data science on them. Now you have further high level abstraction of even analytics services, right? You have machine learning as a service, you have platforms as a service where you can experiment machine learning, right? So it's kind of given everybody a low entry or a low barrier to enter, right? Wherein I don't have to make a huge investment to try out, large data points and then trying to do data science on top of it or experimentation on top of it, right? And that applies to an organization as well, right? Back in the days, you have to procure that many servers, install Hadoop and so on, right? A lot of those things have been simplified. And a cloud provider such as AWS or Azure or Google, it offers you that democratization, right? That you, with click of a button and with the credit card, you can start services, you can pause services when you're not using them, right? So it becomes very easy for anybody to start experimentation, to start learning process, right? You can of course learn data science on your laptop or your desktop, right? But even if you want to scale something, right, to a cluster of, let's say 10 or 100 machines in an organization, you can do it for a 30-minute period and then scale it down, right? So it has given you that access, the economy of scale, right? And also that kind of shared economy that we talk about nowadays, right? With Uber and Airbnb, it has happened. It has made that happen with the computing process, right? And that's what I think AWS and these clouds have done.
Sure, thanks, Anupam. So Rosario, we actually spoke about the 2 points that you started off with. We talk about journeys. We've also talking about what are some of the education courses online that you mentioned about that people can undertake. But I think the next part of the journey, which Rishabh has asked very nicely on the chat, is also to say, if I do complete all these courses and I land myself a job, what would I end up doing? What would my responsibilities be? What is the kind of work that I would do? Can you give me a flavor of that if I get into the space of data analytics?
That's a very, very good question. So I noticed in the last 2 to 3 years that we are getting specialized. Before we used to have this, I don't know if you remember, but there used to be this unicorn profession that the data scientist can do it all, and you have one person and you hire him and he does everything, everything. And now it's not the case, and it wasn't the case at that time too, but there was the myth. So now it's more, I see that there are different professional profiles that are becoming more required. So there is the classic data scientist, and that's the one that creates the algorithms, applies the algorithms and creates a data science application. So it's more like the experimental person we were talking about before. Then there are the newest profession that is coming out now is the data engineer. The data engineer is the one who actually makes this experiment work all the time, everywhere, in all kinds of conditions. So he's the one who takes care of the data architecture, of the versioning of the whole ecosystem around the data science application. And then the last one is the data analyst. The data analyst, a lot of this artificial intelligence is not required. So sometimes you only need to visualize things or to make a nice dashboard and create measurements that people can then interpret. So that's a bit the role of the data analyst. So depending on how you want to specialize, you end up doing different things and having different responsibilities. This is more and more the trend. So there are more, I see more and more data or machine learning engineers coming up with respect to what it used to be that the data scientist could do it all. So you do the responsibilities are slightly different. The data scientist is more responsible for the creation of the data science application through this experimental phase. The data engineer is the one who's responsible for making it work efficiently. So in a constant, so it never crashes, it's always fast, it has always the most up-to-date data to work on. So all these kind of things. And the data analyst is the one who's going to collect the data and provide some kind of a summary that is easy to interpret for the domain expert person. They're slightly different. They all require the same understanding of the machine learning space and the statistics space, but at a different level. And for example, some of them require also, there was a question about soft skills. Some of them require also different soft skills. So the data analyst, for example, needs a better communication skills rather than, I don't know, a machine learning engineer, for example. Even though I have to say the soft skills are often underestimated, how important they are in the profession.
Very nice, very comprehensive answer, Rosaria. Suresh, let me go back a couple of decades, right? So when you would enter a branch, apart from the cashier who sat in this wonderful boxed cage-like place because there was a lot of money in there and would lock himself out from inside and outside, you wouldn't really know what the remaining 20 people who sat behind the desk would really do. And the moment you would enter, oh, there was such a FD Kolna hai, go there, or you want a loan, go here, or you want to do KYC, come here, right? So if I could pick up the same analogy of saying there are so many careers available within the whole data analytics piece, and Rosaria touched upon an analyst or an engineer or a scientist or whatever other fancy words we want to give them. If I have to draw the same analogy of walking into a bank with 10 people sitting behind the desk, not knowing as a customer or a consumer, what is their role, unless some banks started putting those danglers that actually said, oh, this is for loans, this is for FD, so on and so forth, and different products around mutual funds and securities that banks forayed into. If I had to pick up that, and if you had to tell us a couple of roles that would be available and what kind of skills or competencies would be very relevant to play some of those roles, that'll be very helpful, Suresh.
So thank you, Sahil. I think that's a fantastic question, and I would like to merge it with a couple of more questions that the students has put on the chat. The first question I would like to answer on what is that an aspiring data scientist? I mean, what is data science and analytics and what to do? Let me use an analogy here. If anybody wants to demystify analytics and understand analytics data science, what to do, my suggestion is to go to an astrologer. You must be wondering, what am I talking about? But let me quickly correlate and tell you why astrologer. That's an analogy itself. You go to an astrologer, right? First thing, he takes an input data. Of course, your date of birth. I'm sorry, I'm not here to propagate astrology here, but just let's use it as an analogy only, just to understand this demystifying analytics. So he takes some data like your date of birth, etc. Those are numbers. So he does certain calculations to arrive at your horoscope. So that's in mathematics because it's full of numbers, subtractions, additions, divisions of course, there's a little bit of statistics involved in this. So he does the mathematics there. Then he goes to the science of comparing the planet positions. Of course, that science is different from the science that we are talking about here, but take it as an analogy and comparison. The third thing he does is that he sort of goes through the horoscope and tries to take about, he knows, by experience, he would have understood that what's the first threading, second threading, and third threading of the data. That's the sort of algorithm that he uses to sort of get prepared to the predictions. The fourth thing is an art that he's learned. He looks at you, he tries to predict you that, are you happy, sad, what kind of problems that you would like to have. So he applies common sense there, and that's an art here. So combination of mathematics, science, statistics, and algorithms, and the common sense, and especially the context. What questions you have? What's the objective of his job there? So he sorts of applies the descriptive analytics there, just to go through the data. Then he goes down to the prescriptive predictive analytics there. He tries to predict your past, understand the past and try to predict the future. And of course, finally, he tells you the prescriptive analysis. If you have a problem, is there a solutions to it? Just apply it back to the analytics and data science in work. You have numbers, you have data. There is an objective in front of you. You have to understand the data, derive trends, understand the past, apply the current context and environment, then predict the future, put it in a prescriptive way, put a recommendation to the business. That's called actionable insights. So in my way, if you compare these two, you will understand analytics better. My second question, the second question is that what kind of roles? Okay, I will come from the banking aspect. Today, we said that the machines are taking the most of the roles of the backend data processing. So which means you have to touch upon the end of the day, the banks are to make revenue. The revenue comes from selling products. Selling happens on the engagement, where you have to engage with the customer, whether physically, digitally, or virtually. Why I'm talking about these three things? Banks today have a brick and mortar branches where you have a touch and feel, right? You go meet people in person and touch it and feel it and then do your banking. And of course, the digital banking, it's completely self-service. You don't meet anybody, but you do self-service there. The third one is today the banks are trying to fill up the gap between the physical banking and the digital banking is the virtual assisted banking. Your bots, of course, if bots cannot service, there are people powered voice bots, voice chat bots, text bots, and similarly people also assist, right? So these three things are the roles that are emerging in the bank today. All three are available. Apart from these, the distribution channels, there are support departments, there are control departments. So what is support departments? There are product management, portfolio management, and there is finance, there is marketing, IT, there is control departments like today the information security groups, and your risk management groups, fraud detection groups. All of these departments in the banking are the opportunity for data scientists. Every single department, every single job has a data science behind this. So coming to, I think Dr. Rosario beautifully put up the future of the AI ML related roles. So data scientists to a data engineers to a there is artificial and machine learning, and the NLPs are actually completely creating a different sets. Like people who are required to monitor the accuracy of that, keep tuning the algorithms. So there is a lot of roles are getting emerged for the future of data scientists and data engineers. So coming to the third question on how to make use of analytics in banking, I have a very few 3-4 areas to talk about. On the product management, see, there is something called lifecycle management in the banking, right? You acquire customers. After acquiring, using the data, you have to allow customers to do transactions. Once they do a rich transaction, the rich data is available with you. You use them to score them, come out with the behavioral score, come out with the profile aspects of that, and marry it together. Then create a lot of scorecards, score engines are built, for you to activate the customer, enhance their usage levels from one level to another level. Of course, create the reward recognition programs, and then keep retaining the customers. And then if customers are right, how to win them back into the banking. All of these roles do carry data potential for data science roles. All in all, my small tips to the existing and the new data science and data science professionals is that keep your objectives very sharp. Don't mix too many things into one analytics. I mean, if you are trying to do a data analytics work, it's better to take one large objective and then don't get lost in the data lake. That's it from my side now.
Thank you, Suresh. I think so. I had asked you one question, but you were kind enough to answer all three. But I'll stay with the first question, right? Because you really caught my attention on the first question itself. There was a generation that used to go to astrologers, right? And of course, do the Kundli matching, like we call it. And then today there's a generation that goes on to apps and swipes left and swipes right with a lot of algorithms on the back end. Tell us a little bit, picking up this analogy of Kundli matching, as you mentioned, and swiping left and swiping right. How have we covered this journey, Suresh?
See, both are same in the back end, right? So it's just that the role of an astrologer is now being played by the algorithms and the artificial intelligence and machine learnings. And of course, swiping left and right was there earlier also, right? You keep accepting and rejecting. And of course, I see that's an evaluation of data science and machine language and the artificial intelligence.
Got it. Let's make this slightly more provocative. Anupam, do you think it's still the same, or has it changed? Because Suresh explained the science, the predictive, the prescriptive, the art, the common sense that the astrologer did. But does the algorithm pick up all of this when you swipe left, right? You're on mute. Anupam.
Sorry, I was stuck on mute.
Yeah, no worries.
So
no worries.
the data volume has improved, right? So something which somebody was trying to predict on a very small sample space, right? Which was too less to even predict a trend, right? That's what a typical astrologer or that community was trying to do, right? Now you have volumes high enough that those predictions are fairly accurate, right? End of the day, it is still probabilistic, right? But more and more data you throw at the problem, things get more accurate in terms of predictions, right? And this is one area where I would make an exception of domain knowledge, right? Because if you throw enough data, and with the latest advancements in deep learning, you can just throw away the domain knowledge part in certain cases, right? And I say that with a lot of responsibility. We are seeing that in medical community, right? people having zero knowledge of radio-oncology, right? They are able to do research about predictions of a tumor being malignant or not, purely based on data and good algorithms, right? So what has changed is high data volumes and better algorithms, right? But you're still making predictions, although they might be more accurate, and you have a way to verify and kind of test the models, right? Earlier, you had no way of testing and verifying it. Now you always keep 10% of the data for testing that, okay, how good a model has been trained, right? So although there is a loose analogy, but we have to make that comparison with some, logic and responsibility.
Got it. So let's connect the dots as we demystify this on these loose points. Anurag, if everything could be put into an algorithm, would a guy and a girl really need to meet? Or let's put everything into an algorithm, let's just swipe right, swipe left, and data will tell us where the soulmate is sitting.
I think, I hope life was that easy. Because see, as it happens with human beings are kind of, very unique species, and the way brain and behavior, these traits come into picture. A data model will be an a utopic prediction machine if you have accounted for each and every exogenous and indigenous factor. Okay. Unfortunately, in real world with humans, you just can't do it. I myself don't know myself to that extent how I will react in the same situation when I face the same situation next time. That's how unpredictable a human being is.
Did we lose Anurag?
Algorithm. Yeah,
sorry. Anurag, we lost you. Why don't you come back? Yeah, you're back.
Okay.
Just pick up from where you left, which is how predictable the algorithm is.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, like, it's very difficult to account for each and every factor and make a good prediction about, a human relationship. That's the toughest part. So even, I think, even with the most sophisticated computers, we are still struggling to understand the brain mapping and everything. That's let's that's some years till we get there. What I would again continue with the analogy that Suresh and Anupam were talking about the astrology and the current matchmaking that you're talking about. See, I have a bit of maybe a difference of opinion, slight difference of opinion with how other two have put it across. Astrologers, if you compare, if you say that today we have a better algorithm to do the matchmaking, and because of more data we are able to do that. See, the problem with more data is that you also get more noise along with that data as well. Okay. And with this ease of access to the platforms and solutions, you are getting many more data scientists as well. Now, with all due respect to the data science community, I'm part of the fraternity. Not everyone is at the same level of interpreting or leveraging those skills. Okay. Now, these astrologers, I'm not talking about today, like you say 100 years back, 50 years back, those guys were, they were like PhDs of data science of their time. They were like niche set of guys who knew what they're doing and how the entire mathematics behind it. And that it's a proven science. If you know it, it's just lost somewhere that wisdom. But it was a great science around there. And to what Anupam said, that today we can do the testing and everything. Yeah, even in that time, you see, the testing was real human experiences. An astrologer would be renowned because if he had made 10 predictions, done 20 marriages, and all those were great over the years. So I think that has been there. It's true, but what is the good part is that that data, look at it 50 years back, 100 years back, look at it today. I think we are now harnessing this power of data, trying to make meaningful interpretations out of it. We need to just be wary about, with lot of data, as I said, there comes a lot of noise as well. So that capability to segregate information from chaos, that is very necessary. And that's where I believe that, the domain knowledge becomes a bit of that help, because
a lot of there are going to be mathematical correlations. You get a good C value, you get a good R square, you get a good confusion matrix. There is a variable which is coming very strong with a sign out there. But the question is, does that make sense in this decision making process which I am using? The question is it just a statistical coincidence, or there is a business rationale behind it? I also believe that today, because of ease and everything, in certain pockets or in certain places, we have become overzealous in use of data science or technology. I think there has to be a bit of prudence in you do something when you actually need it, and not just because it is being done anywhere else or done by others. A lot of times we are into that space, XYZ is doing it, so that analogy is like, Sharma ji ka ladka kar raha hai, to tum kyun nahi kar rahe ho? Why are you not doing it? So we are under a lot of peer pressure, competition pressure, that someone has built their in-house thing, someone has made this algorithm. You should always ask before adopting a technology or a data science solution. The question should be that why it is important for me and what kind of value I'm going to get out of it. But I think let's for 1 minute, let's get back to the students. I think we are having this conversation so that the students can relate to it and what we are talking about. I think opportunities today are enormous. They are like, as Rosario put in, as Suresh has talked about, and from everyone, I think all of us agree that opportunities are humongous out there. Data science, if you break it into very simplistic terms, I would say I have 4 pillars of data science. Hindsight, insight, foresight, and AI. AI is the 4th, which was not there till almost a decade back. So it totally, and as you progress, if you are just a newbie, if you have no background and you start your journey, you start from the hindsight stage where you just look at what has happened. You try to, report that, and you try to draw, it's kind of, how much of sales happened in last month, last few quarters, how much of, recoveries happened. So it's like hindsighting is looking at the past event and then presenting it to someone else that this is what has happened. It's like reporting. It's like a news that has happened, using data to report an event. Then you get into insight, which is when you keep reporting these kind of events, you try to draw an insight. Okay, in scenario A, B, and C, this is an occurrence which is very regular. It happens. So it means that these 2 events are correlated. So you try to start drawing inferences from the data and the outcomes. That is your next level of evolution. And then you take it to the foresight level, where you have too much of event horizon, a lot of variability in data, a lot of information which you can process and predict. That in past, I have analyzed data for so much of time. This is how the events happen. So therefore, in future, if this scenario is there, then event A will happen. If scenario B is there, then event X will happen. If scenario D is there, then event Z will happen. So it's like, this is your whole evolution journey, and you will fit into any of these as you progress on this journey. And finally, it's AI, where you can use your hindsight, insight, foresight, put it together, use big processing unit, leverage big data, amazing algorithms, use neural networks, naive Bayes, to create an artificially intelligent environment where manual interference is minimal. By click of the button, you can do a lot of things for which you would need 100 people out there. So that's my take on that.
Sure. No, thanks so much. I don't mean to belabor this point beyond the point, but just to be gender inclusive, Rosaria, let's come to you and here. We've heard the 3 gentlemen talking about their views of how there was an astrologer and he used to do all the predictive from hindsight to insight to foresight to AI. And the astrologer did that with the human touch. And then we actually reached a stage where so many apps are actually in the space where you can just hard code what you're looking for and you can get a match. Now, being a lady, would you rather have an interaction where you would reach out to someone, understand the thought process, the genuineness, the warmth, the feel, in connect, rather than just putting everything on an algorithm and let the algorithm decide what is good or what's not good? Because at the end of it, like Anurag very beautifully put it, with a lot of data comes a lot of noise. And if you want to sit in a corner having a nice quiet evening, what would you rather choose? Would you go the hybrid way? Would you go the swipe right, swipe left way? Or would you say, no, I am traditional, old school, I'm going to go back to my astrologer that my grandmother went to?
I don't know. This is a tough question. I don't know. I know that some years ago we made a study. So on Twitter we were searching for the user experience of people using these matching sites. So one was OkCupid, the other one was Tinder. Of course, Tinder had to be there, and the third one, oh, I don't remember. Anyway, and there was a third one. And so we would search the tweets when people were talking about these matching sites and what their user experience was. And it was an interesting thing because we would extract the text and then we would compare also the style people were using. So for example, Tinder was, of course, the outlier because the language was definitely more international. The other ones were more only English. And also the slang that they were using was very much much younger. So there was not talking about marriage. There was not talking about some serious relationship. While, for example, on OkCupid, it was definitely much more traditional. And so they were talking much more about, so if they wanted to get married and things like that. So it was an interesting cut of the society to analyze how people were talking about these different matching sites. And the other one was exactly the international flavor. So some of those are very local, but some of those, Tinder was definitely different from all the other matching sites, and they had all these different languages mixed up together in different.
Sure. Thanks, Rosaria. So Anupam, let's move away from the flirtatious students to the serious ones. And the serious students out there have a question to say, boss, I don't have any learning in mathematics. I have no background to engineering. I don't understand all of this, but I know this is the future. And therefore, can I make a career in business analytics is what Shivam Modi really wants to know. And how do I really make a career?
See, we put too much importance, we associate too much importance to formal education sometimes, right? That this 4 years of engineering or +2, 11th and 12th, what you studied defines you for next 40 years, right? It is a constant learning process, right? All of us on this panel, I'm sure we read a lot, we learn a lot, right? I personally tell my colleagues, I spend at least 20 hours a week on YouTube, right? I have like about 400 videos downloaded when I'm traveling, because I know if I don't get the internet, I'll have those videos saved on my mobile, right? And they range from data science to software engineering to finance and different domains, right? So you don't need any background to start learning. I mean, we live in the most fortunate times where you have online courses, some of the best instructors and professors that have put together those courses, right? And you have an opportunity to learn. You have opportunity to take, full structured online courses on mathematics, statistics, right? All you need to have is just get around this mental block that, hey, this is not for me. Now, sort of, I did this undergrad, so now my caste is changed and I'm no longer a techie. That's not how it works, right? You can learn anything and everything, right? My qualification by college was electronics and electrical engineering, and I'm a self-taught software engineer, right? Whenever I feel like, I take a course on algorithms or data science or databases or programming, right? It's all depends on your personal interest and drive to learn, right? So we've gotten very self-limiting by nature, by slotting ourselves into, hey, this is my engineering degree, this is my MBA. And even there, I laugh when these kids tell me, hey, I have a major in this and a minor is, I'm like, you are a minor from where I'm looking in everything, right? Yeah. You're a micro, forget minor, right? So there is a lot to be learned, right? Forget what your degree is in, right? Just pick up something and start learning.
Sure. Sure.
Start with those 3-minute YouTube videos on data science, right? Some of them are available in Hindi language as well, right? So just be open-minded and you can pick up anything. In fact, in engineering, we have like per semester, we used to have 5 courses on an average, 5 or 6 courses, right? So if you look at, a course on database or data science, everybody spends like 30, 40 contact hours on a particular course, right? That should not be defining. Anytime in your life or career, you can pick up those 30 hours and take an online course and that's it, right? You are qualified.
Got it.
Right?
Sure. So I think, Anupam, you stressed way enough on saying that a formal education degree doesn't really define. And I think, Suresh, let's flip this the other side, right? While this may be one perspective, Devesh is asking on the chat that do I really need knowledge of Java or C++ or maybe Python or R or any other of these tech languages to build a career in data science? And let's flip this to really ask the question to say, when people come for interviews, do interviewers really ask for this? Because it's a chicken and egg, right? On one hand, we are saying it's okay. Anupam is a self-taught person. He's picked up on his own. He may not have or may have, that's fine. But when you come for an interview, isn't the first question that is asked to say, okay, tell me what is it? Which courses have you done? Or what degree do you have? Isn't there a paradox?
See, I would like to pick up 2 cues. One from Dr. Rosaria. What she said is that once upon a time, there was a single data scientist who did everything end to end. Later, it became the work that's split by multiple professionals in the multiple designations names. That was the one. And second, yes, I completely agree with Anupam. There is nothing called, people are not born for data science, right? So anybody can pick up a data science if in my view, has got 3 things in there. One is like, do you just hear or do you listen? Do you just see or do you observe? Do you have the habit of correlating 2, 3 things? Like, how I'm trying to say that, how to correlate one thing with a different analogy. So it's all about something we read, something we try to put our own experience and the reading knowledge into what's happening and then try to relate things. If one has got all the 3 things, they are qualified for data science or analytics is my view. And following to the second question on yours, yes, of course, the degrees and the certificates and the knowledge of everything is today largely used as a filtering system. I don't know about others. When I interview people, I give more importance to people's aptitude and attitude. More attitude towards the handling situations and how do they react? What do they possess and what is their career aspiration? Than what courses and certificates. I honestly, personally don't give much weightage to the certificates and the degrees and stuff like that. Those are qualifiers and just to get into the interview. But the interview is all about what knowledge that the person possesses and what's the more than anything, what's the hidden talent. Sometimes people start late. So people, you can see a lot of experts who would have started late because it's all about when do you sit under the Bodhi tree, right? So you never know. Some sit at 18, some sit at 40, some sit at 50, 60. It could be any time.
And some never end up sitting.
Exactly. The last one is that, again, from a banking industry, right? See, just think about this. A bank is all about, again, I said, you have to fulfill the customer needs. Being a data analyst or a data scientist, you work, there are a lot of tools today. So machine has got to work. There are people and man to monitor and interfere because bringing inferences through the systems and AI ML is going to be, I still feel that, artificial intelligence, NLPs and all of these cannot replace human intelligence still.
Absolutely.
It can only do a volume of job, it can do a speed of job, but it's never going to be equal to, is my personal strong view. So therefore, use that gap, let the machine do the job. As a human being, let's use that job of what the machine is delivering to correlate. That's where the human's touch comes in. I think that's all about that.
No, very nice. So you reminded me of once I had written a thought leadership white paper on how artificial intelligence combats natural stupidity. So very, very rightly puts it. Suresh, I want to just ask you another question from Ronak on the chat, and this is more specific to your sector, and therefore I'll address this question to you, saying there are a lot of cyber security data breach issues or threats that could, engulf the banking sector. How do you leverage on analytics to maybe look at some of this? May not be a direct correlation, but any kind of thought processes. Well, you'll have a lot of data security processes, but any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I will split the data cyber security and the data security into 2-3 aspects. The first aspect being completely on the infrastructure and the compliance aspects. Like, today, of course, everything is a software based, right? Whether it's a operating system or applications or the databases or the internet related, you have lots and lots of softwares who sits on the cloud infrastructure as well as the data centers. So one thing I leave about, how to protect, virtually the threats that poses. That part I will keep it out aside because that's more of an infrastructure related question. The second aspect of the cyber or the data security is about understanding the trends of threats and therefore building a model using data science to come out with where to focus, what to do, and how to do. So that's the second part. The third part I will go a little deeper into. The prevention is better than cure types, right? So today the fraud detection, early detection of frauds, and therefore curbing, and not allowing the frauds to happen is the area where analytics plays a larger role, is my view. Especially, if I have to talk about the velocity monitoring that we implement in our systems, like let me take the payments industry, because the credit card spends are of course the digital payments today are the biggest ones, right? The number of transactions are, it's quite mind blowing there. So how do you prevent about the velocity using the velocity monitoring? Like if a customer, of course, I reside in Chennai. My credit card details are compromised. I'm sure all of you know about Jamtara. Right? Some transactions happening in and around Jamtara or originating in and around Jamtara. That's the analytics or the data science that can be applied here to understand that how come a last transaction happened in Chennai, suddenly a physical or a digital transaction happening from Jamtara. So that's the velocity monitoring and the data science and the data can apply. Therefore, declining the transaction and then connecting with the customer to check or maybe dropping an SMS. All of these are reality today. So I can keep talking about data privacy, data security, data.
So these are very
security.
helpful insights.
Yeah.
No, thanks, very helpful insights. So let's move to Anurag. Anurag has been patiently waiting, and I think let me put a slightly difficult question, if I may say so, to him. And this question is from my namesake, Sahil Gupta. And Anurag, while Suresh spoke about large multinational organizations and the use of analytics and play thereon, how will this really have a role when you talk about startups? Should startups, what is the time for startups to start investing in analytics? Do they need to cover a certain journey and then build in? Do they need to do from day one? What is the level of maturity that they should start building in through the journey for startups turning to unicorns? Anurag.
A lot depends, Sahil, upon the nature of the startup. Because an example, the case in relevance would be like a fintech company. So the fintech company, by its definition and design, is built upon the tech supremacy of the whole process or the data-driven environment. So there, you would expect that the founder, the co-founders would be from the field, from the relevant space. They would have some experience. There would be initial few guys who will be working upon data and algorithm from day one. Whereas in a retail lending business, for example, you will see a bit of a different approach. There, they will hire the sales force at the ground level first. They will need to have a credit managers team first, legal officers, and all that business processes first. And then there will be a data science team that will come after a certain level of maturity. Now, data science and data are, let's separate these two things. Data is something, whether you are a startup or you are a multinational, whatever you are, from day one, you should have that kind of infrastructure to at least aggregate and store all that data you are generating. Even if you don't have a mature data science team today, that's absolutely fine. At some point, when you will have that team in place and you want to understand or draw inferences from your data, then you should have your historical information available and ready with you. There is always that conflict, because at the startup point you are a bit constrained for resources, in which direction you should make that investment. Technology is not has become great, has become accessible, but the economies of scale still are not, I would say, very efficient. The more refined the solution is, the more license fee you have to pay, the more investment you have to make into that. So maybe you won't be able to do everything, you won't be able to hit it straight out of the park on your day one, but thing is that you should have your priorities clear, what my business model is, and I need data science team, but at what stage? If it's a fintech, it's online payment gateways. If it's like those kind of gaming solutions, you would have a good data science capability right at the starting, because that will be the point. That will also be a part of your funding pitch as well. You won't, because that's what you're building upon this on, and have that roadmap planned out. You just need to have a roadmap that this is going to my business evolution phases. This is my business priority. Day one, I will have data in place. Day two, I will have certain analysts who will start churning the data around, getting some insights out of it. Day three, I will have some algorithm developers. They will make predictions. Day five, I will get into the AI space. And like this. So I think not a very, I would say, it's not a plug and play answer for every organization. It's like every organization will have to choose its own journey and the kind of push and pulls, balance between cost saving and investment to be done on this front.
Very nice. Anupam, would you want to add anything to that?
I think it's articulated so beautifully. So I think we are kind of, as I use the word, we are in violent agreement.
Very
so
interesting.
at just one point, like most startups actually are data first startups anyways, right? Nowadays, you hardly see any startup coming without, because most of them are digital startups, right? They're trying to digitally disrupt a space which has been traditionally brick and mortar, right? So I find it very rare that there would be a startup not respecting the need and the importance of data science on day one itself, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, you would see they are not waiting to be a unicorn to start seriously looking into the data science aspect. They are probably getting to the unicorn status by putting a lot of emphasis on data and data science.
Got it. I think, Suresh, another question that's really coming up is banking finance being such a large sector or pervasive. Are there any kind of use cases or applications where you most commonly use data science applications in processes background? It'll be important to know, understand that.
I would say not one. There are many. Largely, of course, I can talk about. I can put the entire data science into 3-4 models, starting from profile. Analyzing, putting together and analyzing the profile of the persona of the customers, and therefore creating the algorithms in and around that. That's one. The second largest aspect is the transactional behaviors of the customer. Where do they transact? How do they transact? Where to protect? Where to allow? Where not to allow? How much to allow? So all of these are transaction related. The third one is really about engagement layer, where let me understand where the customer engaging and what kind of a problems we are solving, not solving. So That's a third aspect. Fourth aspect is all about, of course, the revenue. Where are we earning, not earning? How much? Who's the good customer? Balancing the risk and reward. So all of this put together in banking, starting from profile to transaction to engagement to all of these revenue aspects, and of course coming from the risk and fraud detection angle, delinquency angle. All of these are data sciences applied. So I wouldn't find a area in banking which does not have a scope for a data or a data science.
Got it.
Especially
Great.
in the current and future
environment. Absolutely. Thanks, Suresh. Thank you. Anupam, I touched upon this earlier, which was more around the programming languages, and I spoke about, there was a question on Java and C+. I'd also added on Python or R. And the question from Rishabh specifically is on the question that I had asked earlier, but maybe a more in-depth analysis, which would really help to say, which programming language would you recommend while performing data analysis, Python or R, and why?
So we started with R. I think that was the most adopted language in the universities, and that's where a lot of machine learning, data science research was going on, right? But then with the advent of these distributed platforms, Python became more popular, as things moved on, right? So in today's terms, I think given the tools that you apply data science on, or given the platforms, they are more Python friendly. So you have more libraries of data cleansing and data wrangling written on Python. You have more parallel or distributed algorithms and those libraries written in Python. So suddenly, I would say Python has become more useful for students to learn, or anybody to learn if they're getting into data science. And of course, then you have more democratized tools as well, which I think Dr. Rosaria is on that mission to simplify data science, maybe for the management folks and sort of less technical folks, right? But yeah, from a programming perspective, for those who are going to be in the trenches and doing data engineering and other aspects of data science, I think Python is something it's good to learn.
Got it. So Rosaria, I think so, you touched upon this earlier, but this is a twist to the earlier question to say that data science, as per Prithvi, is more of a back-end job, right? It's a lot on the behind the scenes. But if you really want to be in a front-end job, is there anything machine learning, or are there different tools available to really front-end and not just be on the back-end?
So yeah, there are many tools available now for data science. There was already mentioned Python, R, of course. There are low-code tools. Time is one of the low-code tools. So there are many of those. The one thing that I think that is a bit underestimated in our job is the like communication skills, like the soft skills. When you do an analysis or you prepare an application that then extracts something, you have to be able to explain it. And this is often a problem because people, they put together something, it might be fantastic, but if you're not able to communicate the value to your end users or to your management or to whoever is your stakeholder for that particular project, then it's not worth it because they don't understand it. They can't trust you just because you are smart or you are, so you have to be able to explain it. So definitely to move the data science job from a back end to a front end, I think the communication skills have to improve a lot. You have to be able to explain where the value of the application is and how the application is, what result is bringing, not maybe the technology, but why it's important for the end user and the result that is bringing.
Yeah. So,
sorry, Anurag, were you saying something?
Yeah. I just wanted to
lost you. Go ahead,
and add on to what Rosario said.
Please go ahead.
Because I think that the role, it's not about whether the role is back-end or not. It actually, as she mentioned very rightly, it's up to you to make it back-end or front-end. And communication is such an integral part, and I touched upon it earlier as well, that, no matter how good your algorithm is, if you can't communicate it well, if you can't make its value apparent to the users, then you are kind of a bit of a undervaluing your own performance. And data science is becoming so critical at various decision-making stages, like as Suresh mentioned, across that entire banking terrain, you will find data science solution integrated from acquisitions till the customer moves out of the book. Customer management, fraud detection, delinquencies, servicing, grievance redressal, acquisition, underwriting. Every sphere you are leveraging data science. If you keep sitting, it's again, and this is not even kind of a forcible solution. Something a lot of people actually like the back-end nature of the job. A lot of people come from that academic bent of mind or that research bent of mind, that instead of having a lot of business presentations and pitching it out, they love to fine tune those parameters, get those values and statistics at the right level, and just enjoy the beauty of pure mathematics and statistics. And then there are, so these guys are back end, and these guys are great. They are actually doing a great, phenomenal job, and they enjoy that. And then there are guys like me, for example. I enjoy not just making a model, but for me, the high point is when I am able to pitch that algorithm to the end user, and there is a wow moment from the audience that what an algorithm it is. So it's totally up to you whether you want to keep it back end or you want to make it front end. The opportunity, it's very critical to the organization. So if you have the right communication skill, if you have the right ammunition to convey forward the kind of role you're doing, you will get ample opportunities to be part of the core groups and showcase the importance of what you're doing. And then it's like it's like any other job. You are in thick and thin of the action. So it's totally up to you. You can chart out that plan for yourself.
Fantastic. Very, very nice. Very well elaborated, and in addition to what Rosario mentioned. I think, Suresh, you want to add something?
Yeah,
yes, I thought you were
like
unmuting yourself. Go ahead, Suresh.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So it's a good question. First of all, let me define what is backend and front end, right? So rather in the banking industry, we call it as customer facing and non-customer facing. So I hope we are all on the same page in terms of definition. For me, to my knowledge, the data science can be on the customer facing, can be on the, in banking provides a lot of opportunities for that. So let me throw a few examples, like there is something called capital markets. We call it as a private banking or a wealth management products, right? So you being the portfolio manager of a large wealth for a particular high net worth individual, the wealth is handed over to you, and you are supposed to keep that wealth growing, by analyzing the market. And of course, there are tools. Beyond the tools, these tools are equipped with AI, ML, a lot of stuff. But here, the point is that the data science and the analytics bent of mind plays a bigger role of being in the front end and still connecting with the high net worth individual to sort of put forth your insights and taking that deal ahead. So like this, there are relationship management jobs, portfolio management jobs in the banking that still requires a lot of analytical skills. So there are a lot of customer facing jobs, people with analytical bent of mind, understanding of analytics, data science, and etc. will give a higher weightage than of people who don't have. That's the first part. And of course, little bit to touch upon what my other fellows said is that communication, soft skills, and especially you can't talk numbers. See, you can't talk numbers and all these algorithms to a customer or as well as your internal customer, be it any business teams. You have to convert all of these into actionable insights, which are in plain language, plain English, to the end user or the end customer. Only then this entire effort will convert into a result. So therefore, completely agree that the communication and the skills plays a larger role in delivering the last mile.
Got it. Lovely. Thank you, Suresh. It's a lot of panelists weighing in with their opinions, very, very diverse, yet very convergent views. Like Anupam puts it, like Anurag says, violently agree. So that's beautiful. We've been at this for the last 2 hours, from 9:30 to 11:30. We've had a beautiful discussion right across, from starting off at 30,000 feet to coming down to 10,000, to talking about various prescriptive, descriptive insights, hindsight, foresight, AI, ML, Python, R, the technical side of it, the soft side of it, the front ending, the back ending, the mathematics, the statistics, the Venn diagram. I think it has been just so rich as a discussion. And for nothing else, but if we have to just sit back and play back this recording and hear it not once, not twice, but a couple of times, I think that each one of us will surely have a couple of takeaways, if not too many, as we decide on how we want to build our careers, what do we want to do, and more importantly, a better understanding and appreciation for this subject. So with that, I would like to conclude. I'd like to thank all the students who were so participative on the chat. I think it was your questions of asking even the smallest of smallest questions to the more complex ones that actually brought these insights out. I'd like to thank my co-panelists, starting with Rosaria, bringing in wonderful perspectives, right the way you started off with your 2 macro bullet points. Suresh, an absolute SME on banking and finance, taking us through the front end, the back end, and we won't forget your astrologer, though we still don't know his name. But thank you for introducing us to your astrologer. Anupam, you've been not only just a practitioner, but also very closely associated with academics. And I think your answers were very clearly reflective of both a practitioner's perspective as well as someone very close to academia who brings in the insights that students would surely benefit from. And I think, Anurag, you really aced it totally, right? All the difficult questions, putting you on a spot. It's always difficult to go last when you have a series of other panelists, but every single time, Anurag, you brought in a different perspective that was value adding to the entire team. Dr. Mary, Dr. Usha, Dr. Masood, of course, we'll miss Prabhat. He wasn't there today with us, but I want to thank the entire Jaipuria family for having us over and thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you so much, everybody. Back to you, Mary.
Thank you very much, Sahil. It was a wonderful, you are always a good moderator. You placed everything in that particular place. And I thank Dr. Rosario and Mr. Anurag, Mr. Suresh and Mr. Anupam Gupta for your wonderful timings, because for the untime, it's a early morning for Dr. Rosario and everyone for your special time. I can say the thing that, and it's a mind-blowing session because the industry people only can say that lots of algorithm in a simplified manner as astrologer and kind of the journey of the one. So because it's a kind of this is the thing students and everyone is expecting, because it's a kind of the buzzword, data science, business intelligence, decision intelligence always comes with the intelligence, will always confuse with everyone what is the thing we are going to be in the next level. So it's a kind of a great session, and I thank everyone and participating with the one, and I thank Dr. Usha ma'am. And now I call Dr. Masood sir for the vote of the, for the concluding remarks, please.
And thank you, Dr. Mary. And good morning to all of you. Good morning to all the students. Good morning to panelists. Right? Indeed, it is very difficult to speak after such an eminent panel. And Sahil sir, always so impressive, covering everything. But anyway, the first thing is I want to congratulate, and I am expressing my sincere appreciation to Dr. Mary and Dr. Usha for organizing such a good panel. And they are so good covering every part. So for the students, as we all know that analytics has moved from simple number crunching and assistant in decision making to a comprehensive and strategic decision making on the part of an analyst. And it has been said by a number of authors, number of industry personals also, okay, now in future, all the leaders should be a tech leader, right? So it is more towards the analytics mindset that is to be developed among all the future managers. As we all know that analytics actually constitute three parts. One is technology, other is the algorithm part, maths and statistics, and the third part is domain of the business knowledge, that is a business context, where our students can do quite a good thing, because it is not that much present with the with the technical people like engineers and the maths and stats people, right? So they have to develop actually a analytical mindset, and it will be definitely very helpful. It has been discussed by the panel that lots and lots jobs are there. There is a soaring demand for the analytics professionals, huge job opportunities, and we have to meet them, right? And even the salary wise, there is a competitive edge also. So what is to be done on the part of our students? You have to rethink your capabilities, skill and upskill your capability, and at a very fast speed. So this is all from my side. All the best, and definitely a very useful and very insightful session. That we always say that analytics is converting data into insight. So this is just an example of how the panel constituting Mr. Anupam, Mr. Anurag, Dr. Rosario, Dr. Suresh, and so well moderated by Sahil, Mr. Sahil, right? So it is actually converting all the information into insight. A very useful session. Thank you.
Thank you, Masood sir, for your wonderful. You have wonderfully concluded the session, and indeed we will work upon your work upon the things that you have told. And I would like to call Usha ma'am for the vote of thanks. Usha ma'am.
Thank you, Masood sir. Thank you, Mary ma'am. Now I would like to express my gratitude to all esteemed delegates of the conclave, Dr. Rosario, Mr. Anupam, Mr. Suresh, Mr. Anurag, for your presence and contribution in making this webinar a great success. I extend my sincere thanks to Mr. Sahil Nair for taking this session to the next level in setting the right tone and making it highly participative for the students. Thank you all. And my special thanks to our director, sir, Prabhat sir, for always guiding and inspiring us. And we are missing his presence. And once again, I would like to thank all experts for taking out time from their busy schedule in enlightening us with the knowledge. Thank you so much. My special thanks to PMC, MRC, and IT team for facilitating the session. I want to thank Siddharth, student committee, who really worked hard to make this event successful. Also, thank you all, the audience present there, for paying attention and being so participative. I would like to thank everyone who made this meeting possible. And with this, I think we would be ending our speech, right, ma'am? Can we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thanks for your
Thank you everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you everybody.
Thank you,
Dr. Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sahil. I think that was a wonderful moderation. I like the way you conducted the session, and it was very nice. And thanks to all the students who was posting a very very good questions. Which made the session very interesting and live.
Thank you, Suresh.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Rosario. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was such a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was very nice. And the questions were very interesting.
Thank you. You took it to the next
Thank you,
level.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Surely we will connect again. Surely we will connect again.
Sure.
Let's leave.
Okay. Thank you, Ushama. Thank you, Siddharth.
Siddharth.
Thank you, Raj sir.
Thank
and
you very
Vishal.
much.
So let's
Thank you,
post the
Vishal and
thanks
Raj.
on the
Thank you,
group.
students.
Thank you.
Raj sir.
Thank you, Masood sir.
Shall I end, ma'am?
Yeah, sure. Well on time.
Huh.